Good morning. Still here in the Central Time Zone. It's Grams. Welcome to Second Lap. I am your host. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the mileage. 37,617 the mileage that I'm at so far. I did a post on social media last week where I talked about being at the 1.51%, 1.5 laps into this process, and roughly 12,600 into the 24,902. I know that was a lot of numbers, but as we're doing this and we are documenting, I thought that it would be a benefit for me and Ronnie, who produces the show and is a guest and is probably the fact checker and all the other stuff that makes this thing work. I thought he would be good to come on and talk and go through sort of what we do together as a team to give you the meat that comes out the other end, or how the sausage is made. So with that, I would welcome on stage Ronnie. Welcome, welcome.
Get myself off of mute. Thank you for having me. We're back.
Hey, glad you're here. So we've been doing this for, I mean, I haven't done the math, but I think we're coming close to a year now, where I think we've been.
It's over a year.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say I wanted permission to say it was over a year, but I felt like we were right there. So we've been doing this for a year, and we still, I think, have stumbles and all the things that will continue to show that this is two humans as opposed to two robots. But there's two humans that are producing this. The output, producing is the wrong word, but there's two involved in the output. And I thought it would be fun just to talk about, what it is we think together, makes a successful podcast. And it's, I'll start off in my end of my monologue. I feel like the most complicated component is the component that's out of both of our control, which is other people's schedules. So when attempting to put the show together and to get guests to talk on specific times, I think you and me, need to be as flexible as possible. I think we are, in allowing our time to be shifted around in order to accommodate others. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the most roughest is what I was going to say. I think the place that I find the biggest struggle is aligning, the guest and our availability up to the, hey, we're going to do this every week at this time because we want that consistency. And we find that sort of moves around on a map. And if we accept that as the most challenging part, then I think everything else is within our control. How we show up to the podcast, how we interact with the podcast, how I think we've talked about this privately, but the podcast actually seems to be more important, valuable, and receiving larger results in pieces as opposed to the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. I think can you help other people? You and I are the layman. Other people sort of understand what does that mean? Why would you think that the pieces are worth more than the whole?
Well, it's an easy one. We're humans and we have a very short attention span. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, I'm fiddling with all of the stuff behind the scenes. I can see we've got 3 people watching right now across our mediums since we're going live, but yet when we go and clip this up, obviously, the biggest one we've had was Matt talking about John Mayer, and that one's close to like 70,000 views on that 1.5-minute clip. But there's many different pieces that kind of go into that, whether it's the content that he's talking about and the arguing about the Grateful Dead in the comments, and so we're buoyed by other stuff. And I always find it funny in telling people, like, this is a health-minded kind of be better kind of podcast, and our best piece of content is about music. And so it's one of those, it's just, you never know what's going to kind of take off, and it's always because it's what people are wanting. And And I know for myself, for most people nowadays, like we're not doing what we did in the 90s. No one's sitting down for Friends or having watch parties anymore for 24. And
Right.
that's the thing they're devoted to, and their full attention is going to that. With having the smartphones that we have, I sit and watch Taskmaster while I'm sitting here fumbling, trying to do work. Like I think we're just so, and to a fault, like we're so distracted by so many things because
Right.
we have so many different options to do different things. And so that's where, obviously, this is a half an hour show, and having it in bite-sized pieces gives us the ability to kind of grab more people's attention in that bite-sized sort of way. So that's where I think if anybody who's starting some sort of a long form content, like having that ability to kind of cut it up, find those good pieces and post it out there is where you're going to kind of pull people in. This is not something that you're, just because you're famous or have a bunch of friends, that all of a sudden it's like you're going to have so many people watching live right when you say, hey, we're going on. It's a slow build, and I think that's something that patience is hard to have nowadays.
No, I hear you. So let me peel back a couple of things. You're saying bite-sized chunks, attention span. I would assume as a marketing guy and taking and getting that kind of content, that at one point that was all a sort of manual listen to. I looked at, back when I first started talking about doing the podcast, there was like a per minute charge for editing and all these kind of things. And I feel like that's all like been taken. I want to say opus clip as the words that I'm thinking, but I don't do any of this. Has it changed? How are you getting these clips, and are they really reliable in the way that you're gathering them?
It's changing every day. It's changing right now. I think that's uh, with my other podcasts that I'm trying to build out myself. One of the things that I'm going to start doing is just kind of going on to Instagram or the stuff that I've saved about all of these different things that are changing. I get the posts like, here's what's new in AI this week. Like, I think Gemini, and there's a few other kind of AIs where you can just drop in the URL or drop in your video clip, no different than Opus Clip, and it does it all for you. I think that's the thing right now. But like you said, it's how reliable is it? And for me, that's probably the most time consuming thing, is going into Opus Clip, and it'll give me, and it grades everything. It'll
Okay.
give like almost like a out of 100 grade how it thinks that this piece is trending, has the possibility of going viral.
Okay.
And typically it's about 35 to 40 pieces from about a half hour, 45-minute video, long form
Okay.
video. And then you have to go in there, and sometimes the captions aren't correct. It doesn't understand what you've said, and it also will
Okay.
clip it incorrectly, or will end it at a point when you think like, hey, this needed another 10, 15 seconds in order to kind of fully get that comment or that the kind of clip that you were looking for. So that's
So it still
where,
needs you, still, is what you're saying. I don't want to step over you, but that's what I'm hearing you say, is it still needs you.
yeah, I would say so. I think, and I'm maybe behind a couple months of finding something that might not need me. And so
Okay.
that's, or it has a better editing feature. It's just, I'm kind of stuck in my ways with Opus Clip now for the last few months and going forward, at least for now. But I'm still looking and seeing what other options there are that might be
Okay.
better, might be cheaper, that just might make more sense, that can kind of give me better quality content.
Are they duplicates when you say 30 or 40 out of 30 minutes? Are you getting things where like one of them is a 60-second, but then one of them is 15 seconds, and that way you have those kind of options, or are they all independent content?
Yes, I would say to your question.
Okay.
When you go into at least specifically Opus Clip, and there are a few other ones, it gives you the option if you want to, like the length of the video that you want to kind of create. And
Okay.
so it'll say less than 30 seconds, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, like up to 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay.
And or social media. So essentially, when I take those pieces, I will post them on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube.
Okay.
And for me, the best range is 30 seconds to 90. Like that's
30 to 90.
ideally
Okay.
what I want to kind of get people in, give them an idea of what is being said, what are the topics, so that they're kind of, it's a teaser, and maybe there's a cliffhanger so that they're going to want to go and find the long form content, or
Okay.
just maybe look at some other short form. So that's the range. I think you've seen me do my walk and talks on Instagram, and those
Right.
I try to end at 3 minutes. Like Instagram doesn't really like having anything longer than 3 minutes, and even I would say I should try to stop at 2 minutes, just because it's harder to keep someone on your video for that long. And obviously there's people who have crafted their style that makes sense to kind of, they pull you in with a good hook. There's
Right.
information that they're giving that makes sense. They're talking directly to you than a, hey guys, how's it going? And that's
Right.
where I think you're only talking to the other person that's on the phone, not the 150, 2,000, 500,000 people that end up seeing it. You're
Sure.
talking directly to that person. And that's where I think with our setup, it's more of someone's coming in and watching this conversation between two people. And that's where it's like you're almost eavesdropping on and getting this behind the scenes info. And that's the other way that I see like how content is going, where people want to watch a conversation, be informed or be entertained. And if it's just like, hey, I'm talking about myself, I'm having such a great life, like people are going to swipe by that. Like
Right.
you're going to want to, you're wanting to engage with someone on the content that's either going to help you be a better person, that's going to make you laugh, or that's going to make you think. And that's typically what it is that kind of holds that conversation. Or you're going to want to argue like people did about the Grateful Dead. So that's
Sure.
where like there's those pieces of how good is this piece that's going to interact with anybody that's going to watch it. And so that's where it's trying to find, I use the grade. Sometimes the ones they grade low, I think are going to be much better.
I'm waiting. You're frozen. Oh, there you are. You're moving again.
I think I had too many things open. So that's the other thing that kind of happens with this, is trying to juggle all of the fun stuff of, and that's why for me it's like I haven't set up my other one completely, because there's all these little internet issues and things that go on. And so that's the other part of it. I'm trying to get off all my Wi-Fi so that I can be on this one.
It's all good. And I was going to say that I think that's, I apologize for the pause there, but I think it's a good thing to talk about. Like, we do go live. Like, we don't have to. We could do all this like we did in the past, where we just did a conversation and recorded it, but we choose to go live. And I think it's another way of, getting the person that we may not get. I'm not one that goes and watches a lot of recordings. I know a lot of people that do. It feels so. Anyway, so we go live, and we feels like we've dealt with every situation that could come from being live. Um, okay, so I was going to ask you. You said, "Hey, I post this to this. Is that all individual, like YouTube, and then I go to Facebook, and then I go, or is there, the same tool, or is there different tools that you use to help with that kind of side?"
There are a few different posting tools. I know we currently use SEMrush, which is one that is helpful for a lot of websites, like to kind
Okay.
of, you can do website audits, and this was social posting was an additional feature. I use Rallyo for one of my clients. We used to use Agora Pulse. So there's lots of different options that are out there for posting across different mediums. The
Okay.
only thing with the one that I currently use is I can set it up for everything but X and YouTube. And
Okay.
so those ones I have to go in and manually upload and post and schedule and kind of do all of that. So that's usually what my weekend task is kind of once I've edited those, schedule everything out for the next week, and then kind of, and as well as using AI to kind of create the text that goes with all of them, because it's not just posting the video without any context. You got to have that little headline that kind of grabs people in to know what this video is about so that they actually will watch more than 2 seconds. So
Right.
but it is, like you mentioned at the beginning, it is so much easier than it used to be. When our friend Patrick had me, when I first joined with iMagnet, like my first task was to edit Marketing Mondays. And that was a
Okay.
live show he did every Monday for about a half an hour. And I would take that and then I would cut that down into essentially like the questions that he would pose, which would be about 4 to 5 minutes. And those would be in the horizontal form and post those. But then within that, I would cut those vertical kind of clips up as well, which that would take 5-6 hours of time for each episode to kind of go through, rewatch, try to find
Right.
like the best clips. So that's why having an AI or having kind of a video editor that kind of does it for you saves ridiculous amount of time as far as trying to go back and it'll give you what it thinks. And like I said, you still have to go in and tweak it. With anything AI, don't just copy and paste. You're going to want to
Right.
review it, make sure that it makes sense, that it doesn't put in words that aren't real words, and so or the wrong ones. And so kind of that's all
How accurate do
encompassed.
you think it is? How accurate is it? Is it 95%? Is it
I'd say
82%?
I would give it, I was going to say 92 is kind of
Okay.
where, and
Okay. So
there,
an A minus.
yeah, for the most part.
Okay.
And that's, I would say for the most of them across the board. And editing wise, there's definitely some pieces like I would like to have the content a little bit longer or trim it at a certain spot versus what it does. So yeah, I B plus A minus is kind of the range that I would give it.
Do you do a lot of, and I was going to say, I think I've seen some alerts and things on social media that say don't go over 3 minutes because we won't give you this kind of algorithm reach or whatever. I think so. I get what you're saying, but does it make it easy? Last question on this, I guess. It make it easy for you to go in and, I'm thinking of like editing on an iPhone. Do you just like grab the both sides and you can kind of drag it and get the extra 10 seconds? Is it that simple or is it
It is.
much more complicated? Okay.
No, it absolutely is. Opus Clip recently within the last month or two has got a mobile feature or mobile app that you can use and edit.
Okay.
It's not as easy as it is on desktop. And so that's where I do most of the work is always through desktop, just because I can get my fat finger can't do it versus like the mouse. And so, and yeah, you'll have the clip. You can pull it from either end if you need to start it at a different point or elongate it from the end.
Right.
And then it takes a second to update. It'll auto load the captions, and then it gives you like the transcript. You can go in there and edit the pieces out that you notice, like that's the wrong word. They spelt Robbie wrong, or they whatever it might be. That's where those kind of things come into play, where it's nice to be able to go through and edit that stuff.
Okay. Oh, cool. So you go in, we get the sound or whatever, we get the podcast, you cut it up, schedule. We've talked once again offline on how much is enough, how much is too much. Are you going to turn people off? Are you going to gain whatever? What amount? I think I know this. I think I know this answer, but how many pieces are you throwing up on social media a day?
So that's been a slow ramp. Like with my personal marketing podcast, right now I'm doing one a day. And that's the starting point. Granted, it was maybe one every other day. And so as you get more followers, like you said, you don't want to all of a sudden just shove a bunch down someone's face. I could be very wrong. I'm not, obviously we're not super viral yet where I can say I absolutely know the answer to this. But
Right.
right now, within the last 2 weeks, I have bumped it up from 3 scheduled videos a day up to 4, plus like our graphic, and then you do the videos for me, the posts
Right.
that you guys do, and then whatever we repost and stuff kind of shows up in the algorithm feed as well. So
Okay.
right now, I'd say overall, we're across all platforms. It's about 25 to 30 pieces of content across all of the names that you're seeing there down at the bottom or at the top across all of the different the 5 social platforms that we're on. And so it's averages out like about 5 a day, whether it's on Instagram, on X, kind of
Okay.
that's where we're at right now. And as we've discussed, like you said, behind the scenes, where Gary's like, you need to do what was it, like 100 a day or something that he was talking about? Like, you need to make 500 clips and start posting. It's like, that's great, but like I told you, it's like I don't want to be burnt out, and that's the thing I preach to so many people. It's you want the consistency. So you can go and post 20 posts one day, but then you're exhausted and you're not going to post again. And it's no different than I tell my clients. It's like, start small. Like, start at a point where it's not going to be overwhelming. Like every Thursday, I'm going to decide to post 2 clips, and those are the clips for the week. And then you can see, hey, this is easier. I can find different ways to do this where it's faster. It's not taking as much time. Then maybe start adding on and slowly build. But don't burn yourself out, and all of a sudden the algorithm thinks that you're gone and it's not going to push your stuff. But if you can slowly start adding, slowly start building, just no different. I don't know if you can see like our reach for videos. It has been slowly going up, and like I sent you earlier this week, like YouTube is rocketing off, and I can't see the stuff that's on X, but I definitely know that we're getting more notifications, there's more kind of reach going on there, and Instagram's doing really well. And so those are the spaces that's like, if you're slowly making sure that you're consistent, you're going to start seeing those returns. And at some point we'll have another post that goes 70,000 or 150,000 or 2 million. It's just, obviously the algorithm needs to see us being consistently posting, because that's what it loves. It's like, oh, this account is active, let's make sure we're pushing it out, because people are commenting on stuff, where they're getting the views, people aren't jumping off after 2 seconds. And so that all kind of builds on top of that, where it's like, okay, this account should be pushed out more. And so it will kind of do that with the more content you give it.
So if you're looking to do a podcast and you're looking to take advantage of the pieces being worth more than the whole, I'm summarizing the conversation. You're going to want to be able to take this and cut it up to your podcast. As Ronnie has said, it is still it's, I don't want to use the word manual, but you're still going to have integration or interaction with the application to make sure that your clips are the way you want them. Don't trust the bots.
Oh, for sure.
Verify.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. Like, it's no different. I also forgot to mention too, with the length of clips, the captions. There's also how the video sits. Every time I've done this, the video is much better to kind of clip, because it kind of our faces are clear, versus when we kind of go back, it's a little harder, and I've got to adjust the crop so it fits this space versus out above. And so there's lots of pieces. And as we've mentioned before, since we use StreamYard is how we do all this, I can add these different banners, and I can let you know you're in a bet. Like, there's all these pieces that I can do. Like I've shown, that this is kind of the inner workings of having all of this stuff go. And we've shown before, if somebody was to comment, I see there's 8 of you. If please one of you comment, I can put you guys onto the screen. And then there's all these different things that we can kind of pull the levers for. I know there's Riverside. I think it's Riverside FM.
Riverside.
Another one that is pretty decent as well. So it's just a matter of, like, one, finding a platform where you can record the video, you can download it. Then we also, as I've shown here before, we pull the audio, and then we put that onto Spotify and Apple Music or Apple Podcasts so that you're able to kind of just listen to the podcast. Because I know a lot of people that's whether it's they're not watching live, like you just said, you're not going to watch the recording, but you might go and listen to the podcast and get some
For
benefit
sure.
from that as well. So we want to make sure we're hitting all of these different mediums as far as that goes. So it sounds like a lot, but I think just like anything else, it's you put in the 10,000 hours, you kind of figure out what works. It's riding a bike, no different. Telling my kid fast feet, like, and then it just kind of becomes natural, and you're on that bike riding down the road.
I hear you. Any tips? I guess my tip would be just I'll prime the pump. You want your camera to be sideways because you're wanting to have the video to be as, not as pretty as possible. That's what I was going to say. But to have as much optionality, you want to be able to turn your phone to the side if you're using your phone to record and you're going to be mobile. I use a rubber phone stand that has a deal that holds my phone, and I'm holding it, and it's for me it's like two things. I'm holding the phone so it holds my phone in the right place, and it's also like those old muscle things where you could do grip strength. So over the podcast, I'm working both of my hands as if it made my grandfather, God rest his soul, proud of me because he had those next to his coffee table. Okay, that was my tip. Basically, get something that gives you the opportunity to, make sure that your phone is in the appropriate way. Is there anything that I'm trying to string this out to make sure you get a chance to think about anything in all the different podcasts that you've either produced or been on that is I had no idea, one of those kind of moments, or hey, this has changed my perspective of podcast forever? I mean, is there anything that's made it easier? It feels like people that I invite on, some of them get like the heebie-jeebies the morning of, and they don't want to be on the podcast. They're still nervous. That side of it. Is there anything that you would be able to shout out that somebody that's one of these live guys that's watching us right now is going to go, shit, that makes so much sense?
There's so many people that have the fear of the camera. I think that's the biggest thing. And whether it's guys that I've recorded, I was going to say, if you're not going live, this guy here, I've got just like my regular Canon camera that's set up. I've done where I've gone and interviewed guys, and then like we talked about, use those recordings. And right. Even just the camera, not going live. I think that's the other thing too, that if we're having a guest on that like, hey, we're going to be live at 11:30, like it might give them, like you said, kind of the butterflies, like nervousness. It's public speaking. You're in front of people, but yet there's not actual people physically in front of you. So it's similar to that feeling. But, and again, this goes back to me and Gary's, like, I've always felt like I've been stared at. So to me, it's with my birthmark and my dot that it's just like, okay, people are looking at me. I'm just over it. Like, it's not something where I gave sermons at church when I was like 9 or 10. So to me, being in front of people has just been natural. It's just been something. So I totally understand if people they get that nervousness. And at least I went down to one of our clients, like they had an opening, Future View, shout out Future View. They had an opening and I interviewed probably like 5 or 6 different guys where we did similar, like a 20-minute kind of just, hey, what do you do? Kind of, and at least a couple of them, like they had never done a podcast or like a video interview recording before. And once you get somebody to just talk about what they're good at, things just become easier. And then if you can get them to ignore the camera, like I'm looking at you, obviously if I was looking at the camera, it'd be much more like this and my eyes get bigger and I'm just going to freak out. But if I'm looking at you and we're having a conversation and I forget that the camera is there, then everything becomes more natural. It becomes this conversation. And I think that's what you're ideally looking for with any kind of podcast or video recording or cut up edit clip, is someone forgets that the camera's there and they're just natural. They're going to maybe say something off the hip that maybe if they were staring at the camera, they wouldn't say because they're frozen, where it's like,
Right.
once you forget it's there, things just get easier and you just become more relaxed. And that's honestly, that's the key to having any kind of good recording is relaxed people on camera. It's no different than if you're watching any of the late night shows or anything. They're trying to do the same thing. You can tell when a guest is nervous and they try to like have, hey, tell me about this. And granted, for a lot of them, they have, and I did it with my original podcast, Talking Film. I'd give people a list of questions. Here's what's coming. If you want to kind of prep your head, and like, I'm not going to do a gotcha question, but here's what's coming. If you want to kind of prep your mind to be able to know and have something that sounds coherent versus like mumbling and
Thinking,
not knowing
right.
what to say, it makes it easier. And so that's where it depends. Like everybody's going to be different. Everybody kind of has that need to have some sort of prep or just wing it. Some people just are a little more natural kind of being able to do that. So yeah, I think there's lots of different tips and things I can give, but it's try your best to forget that camera's there and then just kind of have a conversation with the person that you're talking to, and hopefully it turns out good. Hopefully people enjoy listening to it or eavesdropping on this conversation that's happening.
I love it. I was going to say, I just heard back from Jordan, the producer of Born to Tint, the Miller Brothers podcast that I was on in January, and he's editing up for next week. So shout out. Gramps will be on the Born to Tint podcast, and we talk. Why I brought them up and what I was thinking about them is the experience than doing live versus how you and I do it is completely different. You go in, you sit in their studio, and they sit you down, and I think they do it for all guests. I don't think I was special. I mean, I do know I'm a special human, but I don't think they did it for me special. But yeah, thank you. We were sitting there, and I would, if it's just you and me and we weren't live on thing, I'd say, the term would be shooting the shit. We were just sitting there joshing back. Josh, I'm dropping all their names in my description. We're just shooting the shit, talking, and I kind of, out of the corner of my eye, I look over and there's a timer going, and we're 7 minutes into the, recording of the podcast, and I don't even know, like, because we're just joshing, we're just talking back and forth, we're just talking about kind of small talk, and then they did their intro at the end. So we get to the end, and I'm sitting off to the side, voyeuristically. That's what I would call this. That's how I get people enticed into, hey, you get to listen to our conversation voyeuristically, as if you're just looking over our shoulder.
That might be the title of this.
Yeah, that'll be our title for that. So I'm voyeuristically sitting back in this L-shaped desk that we're having this conversation in, and I'm watching the two of them, and they'd start recording it, and they're brothers. They're going to pinch each other into the table. They're going to do the things that brothers would do. And you would hear somebody would say Gramps too many times, or I can't remember which word it was, but there was one where they would say it 3 or 4 or 5 times. And it's like in a 30-second clip, it's too many. And so they would be like, okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. They did like 4 or 5 times. And so you get to see how the sausage is made. We don't get that chance because we have to start the music and move into the live, and there's a whole different, process. But I think I like what you're saying. And I think we try to do this, I think, with the guests prior to hitting record, which is get them to feel comfortable with the situation as opposed to being comfortable on camera. Because I don't think you like you said, public speaking and the sweaty palms and all that kind of stuff. Even my sister, like, she talked to me after. She's in her 50s. I can say that out loud, and she's still nervous to get on the camera, and she runs teams of people, humans all around the globe, flies to Europe, flies around, does teams on the East Coast and the West Coast, and people just get nervous, as you said. And I think for me, I guess I'll stack on yours. I try to pretend the camera's not there. by putting on these. And it gives me, and I've gotten emotional before, it gives me this protection, as weird as it's going to sound. And I don't know if everybody can do podcasts where they can wear sunglasses. I think, maybe, maybe I was going to say there's some celebrities that, like Jack Nicholson is who comes to mind, that are wearing sunglasses even when they're watching the LA Lakers. I don't think he goes anymore because he's gotten too old that he's not there, but you get it, right? This is my hack. I put this on and you guys can't see my eyes and you don't really know it's me, but you do. Get comfortable with the camera. That's what I guess my thing is. That's the most, and we all put our shoes on the same way. We all go to bed the same way. All use the toilet the same way. We're all human, and just trying to get as comfortable as you can in your own skin and being able to talk is, it's mesmerizing. And it's funny as I've gotten to the point where I'm as comfortable as I think I feel like I could be. Now people are going back to like take the recording and go write a blog post because people want to read about it and they want to understand it and they want to whatever. And it's like, man, I'm not in English. I'm a math guy that's finally got good with the camera. And I think there's even tools that help you to write blog posts. So,
well, yeah, I was going to say yes. Shout out to Ricky and Josh. You were ricking it up too, not just joshing it up. But those guys, they definitely know what they're doing. I think it was SEMA. Otherwise, it was the other. I don't think it was WFCT. I'm pretty sure it was at SEMA. They had a booth set up, and they just churned through like 20 podcasts every day, and then boom, they've got a ton of content. So there's lots of different ways to do all of that, but no different than, like you said, with them kind of doing, I think it's like the Toastmasters. If you say too many ums, they ring a glass or do different things, kind of the public speaking thing. Right. And our good buddy Eric Devash was on last week when I was down in Florida with him and recorded the one that you might have seen that shows up on my timeline every once in a while with Tintwiz. Yep. Him and Cadell both called me out on doing no, yeah. Like I was saying, no, yeah, a whole bunch. And so and everybody has these little kind of quirks and things that you do when you don't even realize it. And that's a huge thing too, is if you can't stand seeing yourself on camera, editing your content is going to be very hard for you. And that's something that I think for me, I had to get over once I think I joined Patrick on Marketing Mondays, like 70, I want to say. And then we did up to 100. And so those last 30 episodes, I'm sitting there editing myself and I'm catching all of the things that I'm doing that I'm like, and it would always be the same phrase repeated over and over again. And now I pick it up. I remember there was like a girl I did in the past that like said the same phrase over and over again. And then I hear it with everybody else too. And it's like, okay. And I'm trying not to be a jerk and just be like, hey, stop. You're saying this like 15 times, like over and over again. And thankfully, I haven't noticed it with you. At least you've been free flowing. But even now, I'm going to edit this back and I'm going to see like, oh, why did I say this again? Or, every once in a while, and like it'd be the same thing repeated. And I just like, okay, I have to find a way to eliminate those things that I'm saying repetitively as kind of the bridge to my thought. And that's where I think if you can just say, I think that's one of them right there. I think I say a lot. If you can kind of just move through what you're trying to say, and granted, I've been one of those, my brain goes a million miles a minute, and I often will be able to, whether it's having an argument, I'm reading the text before I say it in my mind, before it hits my mouth. And so that's the benefit, is I'm not somebody that needs to kind of proofread what I'm thinking before I say it. Because at least in my head, I'm like, all right, I already know what this person's going to rebut back with and kind of go there. And it makes me a big know-it-all. My wife hates it. And so, and plenty of other people have called me out on it, but it's at least something that I've acknowledged that I do. And so if I'm able to work my way through, or just like what I just did, I take a pause for a half a second and figure out like, what is this that I need to say? I'm not using the filler words, which are going to kind of either drive myself in the editing process, or it's something that whoever I'm talking to is going to hear over and over again and then kind of get irritated. And so those are the things to kind of keep an eye on when you all of a sudden decide like, all right, I'm going to start doing a podcast. And then you go and watch it back and you're like, I'm never editing myself again because I don't want to have to hear myself say this over and over and over again. So there's lots of different kind of pieces to it all.
Have you, quick question on that. Have you become a better communicator with any of this? I mean, does it take, as you said, I will pause as opposed to saying, I've tried to learn some of the things to just, I want to say be a better communicator, because when I pay attention to other humans, they'll focus in on the person that, spelled their wrong or used the wrong form of the to, or they'll, the grammar police, as people will call them. And I try to do the things that I do, because if I can get as refined as I'm capable of being to those things, I feel like people will listen to what I have to say as opposed to judging what I'm saying.
Oh, for sure. That was it. I feel like I've dropped every podcast. So I did the Bucket Bros. And because there's so many NBA players that I don't know how to pronounce, I was hoping to find it. I had a name jar. Instead of a swear jar, I had a name jar. Every time that I messed up a name, I'd put some money in it. And I think that's
not fair in that sport, by the way. That's not fair. I've seen some of those names. Yeah, I would never be able to say them.
But I think I just saw, what's his name? From
Djokovic?
No. The guy from Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt, today. I think it was yesterday. He was talking about Travis Achan. Like, we've been calling him Travis Etienne. If you're a fantasy football player, you've been saying Travis Etienne Jr. forever. And he just came out and said, it's Travis Achan. And what Kyle Brandt was saying, it's like, and it's to my own fault, because I'm just like, I've told my friends and my wife, like, what I was trying to say. But yet, especially with names, like, let people know how to say your name properly. So, because it's a form of respect. Like, I think that's a part of it too. I want to say someone's name correctly and not make them feel like, oh, this person doesn't even know that my name is. And I've battled with, like, is it Matson? Is it Matson? Like, to me, in my head, I'm like, is there supposed to be an E there? And so it's always something where I'm always worried about making sure that I'm saying the name correctly. But yet I know, like you said, when I'm out of my depth, I'm out of my depth. And I'm not going to be able to pronounce Eastern European names correctly. But there was another thought I had at the beginning of this, as far as being a better communicator. That was your original kind of question from this. I hope that I've become a better communicator. I had a former boss that he called me out on it. And again, this goes to me being self-proclaimed know-it-all. My mom used to call me there was a phrase of just being like a know-it-all kind of deal. Where I always assumed I knew what the other person was about to say. And I would interrupt them because I'm like, come on, get to your point. I know what you're trying to say. And 80% of the time I was right, but it's still ignorant of myself and disrespectful to kind of jump in front of line of what they're trying to say because I'm waiting. And it's especially now with a 7-year-old, I think that's where I have to be patient. I can't do that to him. I have to let him kind of get his idea out. And so at least in my mind, to be a better communicator with him, to let him feel empowered and not to be run over by his dad because I'm trying to get to whatever, like giving him the time and the space to communicate what he wants to. I think that in itself is what makes me a better communicator, because I'm forcing myself to listen, to fully understand and make sure that I'm not running over him or anybody else. I have to shut my mouth and just listen and let them get their idea, their thought, whatever it is out, versus me trying to just be like, yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Let's just get to the point kind of deal. And that was very rude of me in the past. And so I think, and I'm thankful that he had the balls to say it, to like call me out and be like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, let me finish and then you can move on and say what you need to say. So yes, I think there are many pieces, but that's growing up. I'm like you've talked about, we're still 15-year-olds just with older bodies. And it's like, how do we manage to still communicate in a way that is our age versus what we want to do and still be that teenager and act out in a way.
Right. Right. No, I get it and I appreciate it. But I said no. That's one of the ones I'm still working on because I'm talking to myself, but I'm saying it out loud to you because I'm saying, let me pause there for a second. And anyways, I'm going to get better. I'm not going to say no as much
No,
unless
and
it's to my
see,
wife
I
who I
just
can
did
see
it
doing
too.
yard work.
Because I think it's, and you're not Midwest, but it's the old Midwest, like no, yeah means yes. Yeah, no means no. And it's part of our vernacular that we've just done in communication. But like I said, I was thankful that Eric and Cadeau like made the point, like, as soon as you say no, you're like contradicting yourself. You're putting that block of no to the person that's there. And so being able to stop yourself or think about
Right.
those things before you say it, but you're not going to be perfect, and that's, you're human. We're all human, and I think that's, we're all deserving of understanding, is what I texted somebody earlier today. It's like we have to be able to give each other that grace to be like, we're all still working on ourselves, and so it's just a
Yeah.
matter of if we're willing to be better today than we were yesterday, and to be better tomorrow at communicating, at whatever it is that we're doing. It's give yourself that grace to know, like, you're going to make a mistake, but as long as
Right.
you're willing to work on it, you're making progress and in pursuit of being a better human.
I couldn't have said it any better. On that note, thank you for joining. Thanks for being willing to come on and talk about how the sausage is made, so to speak. We're here
I wish I had
anytime.
the
And
Seinfeld clip of him and Newman.
yeah, if there's other ideas that you have, I'll throw this out there. If there's other ideas, the 8 or 9, 10, whoever's paying attention now
23
and
right
or
now.
okay. Ideas for podcasts, thoughts, you want us to talk about certain things that when you find Ronnie and I alone that you want us to dive into, share them in the comments, send us a note. We're always trying to get better. So thank you
Yes,
for joining.
thank you. He left.